The Wuhan coronavirus outbreak, now a global emergency, the World Health Organization declaring it, but not entirely because of what's happening in China.
We don't know what sort of damage this virus could do if it were to spread in a country with a weaker health system. We must act now to help countries prepare for that possibility.
There are now almost 10,000 cases worldwide, 99% of them in China, where at least 213 people have died. Now, despite the declaration, Ottawa says Canada has already been taking steps to make sure we control the spread. All right, so there are still so many questions when it comes to this story. So I'm joined now by Dr. Brett Belchetz, who was in the front lines during 2003 SARS outbreak. So you saw the hysteria there?
Yes.
Where are we when it comes to SARS versus being prepared for coronavirus?
I think we're far further ahead than we were when SARS started. So SARS was very much a wake-up call to all of us. We didn't know how to protect ourselves from that virus. Many healthcare workers were exposed. We didn't have the right equipment in our hospitals. We didn't have the right physical setup that protected the frontline healthcare workers from getting infected. So we learned a lot. We changed a lot of our policies and procedures, and I think right now we're in a much better place to protect the healthcare workers and to protect the population at large.
Okay, so we put this out on social media because we want to debunk some of the myths that are out there. There's a lot of conversation, and a lot of a sudden everyone's a doctor, right? So let's talk about some of the questions. We put this out on social media. One of the big ones that we got was the idea of spread. So let's bring up that here, this question. How is coronavirus spread? Is there an answer right now?
So far, we don't really know the answer to this. So when we look at viruses like this, so coronavirus is the same family of viruses that the common cold comes from. Typically, there's two ways they spread. They can spread through airborne spread. So you cough or you sneeze, droplets go in the air, and somebody else breathes those droplets in and they get infected. The other way that they can spread is through surfaces. So you cough or you sneeze onto a surface. Somebody else comes along a few hours later, touches that surface, then touches their face, and then they get infected. We don't know for the coronavirus yet whether it's one of those kinds of spread or both of them. We are very much researching this, and hopefully we'll find this out really soon. The best thing is to try to protect yourself against both mechanisms of spread at this point in time.
Okay, so that brings us to the next one, and it's the idea of the face mask. So this is coming to us on Twitter, and this question here from David Yee. Do surgical masks actually cut down the risks of contracting infectious diseases? So not just talking about coronavirus. And the short answer is?
Short answer is no. So if you're talking about surgical face masks, so the kind that you'll see a surgeon wearing in the operating room, and when I look around at people walking around town, that's what most people are wearing. They're not wearing proper protective face masks.
Yeah.
Those absolutely do zero. Now, what those do protect you from is if you yourself are sick and you're coughing and sneezing, they stop your cough or your sneeze from spreading out into the room. So when we look at something like a flu virus, we look at airborne spread of a flu virus. When you cough or sneeze it out, it can travel about 6 feet. So somebody way across a room from you is not at risk, but people immediately around you are at risk. And what that surgical mask does is it stops it from spreading those 6 feet. So you're protecting others.
Okay, so I'm just going to do the walks. Yeah. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
And you're even further from me. Okay, so if I were to cough from here, the droplets wouldn't necessarily get to where you're standing.
I'm at the border of where you would be at risk.
Okay.
And this is really important because if you're on an airplane, you're in the back row, and somebody in the front row has coronavirus, you're going to be fine.
In from John, I don't get flu shots. I want my body to fight off infections on its own. This coronavirus has me considering, will the regular flu shot help defend against this coronavirus? Now, let's start in the very first part because there's a two-part question here. I don't get the flu shot. I want to fight off infections on its own. What do you say?
So this is the kind of statement that gets me as a healthcare worker really frustrated. So getting the flu vaccine, is a very important way to actually get immunity without having to be exposed and to fight off that infection on your own. And the reason why that is important is the flu is actually one of the leading killers across North America and around the world every single year. So it's a way for you to get immunity without being exposed to the risk of serious illness, hospitalization, or death. So absolutely refusing the flu shot for this reason is a very, very poor path to go down. I recommend everybody gets it. Now, will it protect you against coronavirus? Absolutely not. The flu vaccine is very specifically designed to protect you against influenza viruses, which are completely different from the coronavirus. You'll get nothing from that. But it's really important to get the flu vaccine because in this season, your chance of getting the flu is literally thousands of times greater than getting coronavirus, and your chance of getting very sick with the flu is actually quite substantial.
Yes, and especially if you've got the little ones or anyone who has immunity that is not as great as the average person. I want to bring in this one because when we talk about the surface, it's about the washing hands. Yeah. And so someone says, I'm washing my hands. Wash my hands, I'm done. No, that's not enough. What does washing hands actually look like, Brett?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The vast majority of people don't wash their hands correctly. So there's a few things to go by. So number one, always do water first and then add the soap. I see lots of people, they add the soap and then the water. That makes it less effective. So wet your hands, then get the soap, then lather. If you're not lathering for at least 15 seconds, 15 seconds, you're not lathering for long enough. So when you're lathering, again, I see a lot of people do that. And if you just do that for 15 seconds, not good enough. So when we wash our hands, say for a procedure or a surgery, we're very careful. We go up and down. We clean between the fingers, between the different surfaces. Because these are the places where a lot of viruses like to hang out, in those areas that you don't wash frequently. So make sure you're very much going up and down between those places.
And the pads.
Finally, these are the spots where you're touching things all day long. Make sure you're not just rubbing your palms. Make sure you're touching the pads of your thumb of each finger, because if you're going to pick up a virus, most likely it's because you touched something with the pads of your fingers, and that's the place where you're going to touch your face and pass it on.
So much great information here, Dr. Brett Belchetz. Thank you so much, as always.